Why are humans the masters of this planet? We don't have sharp claws, we can't run fast, and our babies are born as helpless as potatoes. In fact, if you look at our history, our survival was a complete biological accident. Tonight, we are going to explore 10 bizarre secrets that changed our species forever, and why being physically weak was actually our ultimate superpower. 1. The Mystery of Silphium. Imagine a plant so powerful that an entire empire was built around it. A plant that was literally worth its weight in gold and stamped on every coin. Julius Caesar stole 1,500 pounds of it from the Roman treasury, and Emperor Nero ate the very last stalk on Earth. This is the Mystery of Silphium, the ancient world's most wanted medicine. Our story begins in Cyrene, in modern-day Libya. It was here, and only here, that Silphium grew wild along a thin strip of dry, mountainous coast. The locals quickly realized that this strange celery-like herb possessed incredible medicinal and chemical properties. Long before modern laboratories existed, humans had discovered a natural pharmaceutical wonder. Silphium was the ultimate cure-all, treating coughs, fevers, and snake bites, but its most famous property was its use as highly effective contraception. The ancient Greeks and Romans relied on it so heavily to control family size that the plant's heart-shaped seed became the universal symbol of love we still use today. Because of its popularity, Silphium became a global currency. Roman merchants traded it stalk by stalk, keeping it locked in heavily guarded vault fortresses. But Roman elites allowed sheep to overgraze the fields just to taste the meat of animals fed on Silphium. By the 1st century AD, greed drove the plant to absolute extinction. 2. Beating Ice Age monsters. Let us travel back 30,000 years to a time when humans were definitely not the top predators. We were small, slow, and hairless. We were surrounded by 700-pound cave lions and massive short-faced bears that ruled the freezing landscape. Yet we didn't just survive. We outsmarted them. How did a soft animal with no claws become the master of the wild? Our secret wasn't strength, it was our capacity for technological innovation, starting with the invention of the tiny bone sewing needle. This simple needle allowed us to sew tight, insulated, multi-layered clothing. While giant mammoths froze, humans stayed perfectly warm. Without forests to provide timber, our ancestors designed homes out of the massive bones and skulls of woolly mammoths. But our greatest weapon was our social cooperation. Humans didn't hunt giant beasts individually. We worked as coordinated units. We constructed complex pitfall traps, drove animals off cliffs, and used fire to direct giant herds exactly where we wanted them. 3. Why predators don't attack you sleeping. If you lie down in the middle of a wild forest, you should be a defenseless meal. But strangely, most wild predators like wolves won't touch you. In fact, if they find you sleeping, they might run away in fear. Why does your deep sleep look like a trap? The secret lies in biochemistry. When we enter deep sleep, our adrenaline drops to near zero, and our breathing becomes slow and rhythmic. This biological calm completely changes our scent profile, sending a strange, quiet signal into the forest air. Sick or injured animals struggle, panic, or emit sense of fear. A creature sleeping with absolute calmness looks like a creature of supreme confidence. Predators assume you must be incredibly powerful to sleep so fearlessly in the open. They suspect a trap. Our biological design also protects us through REM sleep paralysis, ensuring we do not move or act out our dreams. To a predator, this utter stillness is highly suspicious. They decide it is simply safer to walk away and hunt easier prey. 4. The 15-hour workweek. You probably work 40 to 60 hours a week just to pay your bills. But for 99% of human history, people only worked for 15 hours a week. The rest of their time was spent resting, socializing, and creating art. How did we trade our freedom for a 9-to-5 job? Working meant collecting food and hunting, and it was surprisingly easy. They simply harvested what nature provided. Because they didn't farm, they gathered over 100 different species of plants, giving them an incredibly diverse and nutritious diet. This left massive amounts of leisure time. They spent days lounging and sharing stories around the campfire. Archaeological evidence shows that early hunter-gatherers were healthy, with dense bones and straight teeth free of cavities. Because they did not rely on a single crop, their physical health was vastly superior to the early farmers who followed them. So why did we change? We traded our 15-hour work weeks and our varied diets for a lifetime of backbreaking work in the fields. 5. How cats colonized our homes. Dogs were trained to obey, but cats, they just moved in. 10,000 years ago, a small desert hunter noticed humans had a problem. When humans began storing grain, we created a paradise for rodents. Mice and rats invaded our villages, destroying food supplies. The African wildcat saw this as a golden opportunity. Instead of being hunted, they walked directly into human settlements. This relationship was mutually beneficial. Cats got an endless supply of mice, and humans got free, highly effective pest control. In ancient Egypt, cats were completely deified. Egyptians worshipped them as gods, protected them by law, and mummified them. Cats then used our trading ships to conquer the globe. They boarded ships to protect cargo from rats on long journeys. By acting as sailors, cats spread to every continent, establishing themselves as the ultimate guardians of human food. Today, the takeover is complete. Cats have even adapted their meows to mimic the exact frequency of a human baby's cry. 6. The invention of privacy. For 290,000 years, humans never had a private moment. You slept, ate, and lived with 40 other people watching you. There were no doors, no walls, and no secrets. How did we manage to be intimate or even go to the bathroom? We managed this through strict invisible social rules. We relied on tactical ignoring, pretending others didn't exist when needed. But everything changed when we built permanent agricultural villages. For the first time, we separated ourselves with physical walls. The modern concept of the private home was born. This invention of physical walls created the concept of private property. Before walls, everything was shared. Now, anything inside your walls was yours, and anything outside belonged to others. This divide triggered the emergence of greed, defense systems, locking keys, and conflicts over property borders. While walls provided physical safety, they also triggered the modern loneliness epidemic, cutting us off from constant connection. 7. Music, the pre-language tech. Before we had alphabets, we had beats. Why did ancient people, struggling for food, spend days carving a flute out of a bird's bone? Because music wasn't entertainment, it was a survival tool. It was the only way to sync hearts and build tribal trust. Music had the power to synchronize the emotional states of a group. When they clapped to a beat, their heartbeats literally synchronized. Before writing was invented, music served as humanity's first hard drive, storing and transmitting complex survival knowledge. Important stories about migration paths and poisonous plants were put into rhythmic songs to ensure knowledge survived generations. Animal bone whistles were also critical signaling devices. In dark, dense forests, humans could not see each other. Rhythmic whistling allowed hunting parties to communicate over long distances and coordinate attacks without revealing their location. Finally, music had a vital biological function, calming infants, ensuring they wouldn't attract dangerous predators to the camp. 8. Why your best friend needed a bone. 30,000 years ago, wolves were the stuff of nightmares. But then, a few calm wolves made a historic choice. Instead of attacking, they scavenged our leftovers. This accidental partnership changed human history forever. Without dogs, we might still be hiding in caves. The dog was a living early warning system with senses humans lacked. They could smell predators from a kilometer away and hear footsteps on frozen ground that no human ear would catch. In Germany, archaeologists found a grave dating to 14,000 years ago. A man, a woman, and a dog buried carefully between them. The dog had been seriously ill as a puppy, showing damage consistent with distemper, a disease requiring weeks of intensive care. Someone had fed it, kept it warm, and nursed it through an illness. They spent scarce food and energy keeping a sick animal alive. That is not utility. That is not strategy. That is genuine emotional attachment. Our bond was always built on true friendship. 9. The agricultural trap. Farming was supposed to make life easier, but it made us work harder, eat worse, and become slaves to the grain. Early agricultural bones show massive joint damage and severe arthritis from endless bending over fields. We adapted our daily lives and our bodies to match the plant's seasonal needs. We served the grain, not the other way around. To manage this exhausting labor, humans turned to animal power, designing heavy wooden plows to tear open the dry earth. Farming created a food surplus. This surplus led to storage silos, which quickly brought the rise of social classes and taxation. The food supply was controlled by rulers, dividing humanity into rich and poor, creating social inequality for the first time. This surplus also had to be protected, triggering the rise of professional armies and fortified walled cities. Human conflict shifted from small skirmishes to organized, large-scale warfare, trading our free, wandering lives for systemic conflict. 10. Raising human potatoes. A baby horse can run an hour after birth, but a human baby can't even hold its head. Why do we start life as a helpless potato? The reason is a biological trade-off. Walking upright on two legs made our pelvises narrower for balance, but our brains were growing. This created the obstetric dilemma. A baby with a large brain could not fit through a narrow pelvis. To solve this, human babies are born premature, entering the world completely dependent on others for survival. This vulnerability forced humans to become the most social creatures. A mother could not gather food and protect a baby alone. Raising a child required a cooperative village. This need for teamwork laid the foundation for the first human societies. This prolonged childhood is the secret behind our intelligence. By being born helpless, our brains remain flexible, learning for years. We start life as helpless potatoes, but through cooperation, sharing knowledge, and social bonds, we become the masters of the planet.